Hello, my loves. This is your soul message for September 2022. What day and time is it even? Okay, there's going to be so much. I was on a walk this morning and just tons of channeled information was coming through. I thought I had pieces of it yesterday, but there's so much. So this is probably going to be a long one. So this one is titled Strength Training. And think of it like we are going into battle. We are engaging, we are preparing for battle. And it's weird to even say that because the whole of the year, the whole of the last 2.5, close to 3 years now has felt like battle. So let me kind of preface what I'm talking about here. The battle that we are going into, we've already been engaged in it, but now we are going to become more and more and more aware of the fact that we have been in battle, and that now we're going to fight like the real inner dragons, the inner demons. So it's a war that is on the inside. It is an internal war that is influenced by the external. So this is strength training on a level that you have not done before. So I talked about this, I think it was in the new moon in Virgo last week. But then again, I forget which videos these get spoken in. But when we talk about the 4 quadrants, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, lean into all 4 of those. If you want to include the heart, you can include the heart body. But specifically for this purpose, lean into those 4 and ask yourself which one of them you live in most and which one you live in least. And the 1 or 2 or 3 that you live in least, that is where your work is. That is where your strength training is going to come from. If you're someone who's already really in the physical, you're already really into exercise and health, all that physical vitality, then maybe your work is emotional. Maybe your work is spiritual. Maybe your work is mental. If you're already a hardcore meditator and you've got the mind like really cleaned up, then maybe it's physical. Maybe it's something else. A piece that did come through in the new moon in Virgo last week, and that's still available in my shop always. They're pre-recorded, so you can just download it and grab those. One of the things that came up was this dance between the emotions and the physical. And there's this thing happening where all of the buried emotions need to be felt. You got to feel it to heal it. And so if it's not just the buried emotions that have been, coming up over the last couple of years. We're talking about generational, we're talking about decades, we're talking about lifetime, we're talking about past lifetimes, all the stuff that has been buried. And it needs to come up now. And so there's this way of feeling it, and then we've got to move our bodies to alchemicalize it. We've got to exercise it out, sweat it out, breathe it out, all these different ways. So there's the strength training, there's that part of the strength training. Then let's just get into September a bit. So the top of September, we're still in Virgo before we move into Libra. Virgo is the archetype of the maiden. And what's interesting about that is when you think into the maiden, it seems like, as our society has shown us, like, oh, maiden means young, youthful, maybe weak, maybe subservient. The maiden is the one who doesn't yet know. But what I'm feeling is Joan of Arc energy. This is the battle maiden, which incidentally, a couple years ago, someone who had a daughter named Heidi told me that that's what that name means in Nordic tradition, I think. But anyway, so think of Joan of Arc. I think she was only 16 when she was in battle. So think of that. This is an armored maiden. And think also, when you think about an armored maiden, this isn't armored out of fear. This is armor because you already know you've won the war, because you already know you have all the skills and all the capability within you to withstand whatever the external world throws at you. And this reminds me of a piece that I wanted to bring in here. It's a battle it's almost like on the psychic plane. We have to start realizing how society is programming us and how deep and thick that it is in order to unwind some of that. So some of the examples is I was thinking the other day how incredibly transparent it is, even in social media. The thing that we scroll through is called a feed, because this is what they're feeding us. This is what we're feeding ourselves. And if we do not realize that there is a direct relationship happening there, we are fooling ourselves and we're missing the mark. This is why I've been saying for, I don't know how long, the better part of the year at least, unfollow anything or anyone that doesn't make you feel good. Limit the time that you're on social media. Limit the time that you're on your devices, and be really vigilant. This is part of the battle maiden as well. Like, this vigilance energy wants to come through. It's like we have to be vigilant about what we allow into our space, because every single thing that comes into our space influences our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas, our physicality, how we feel about ourselves. And we are missing the mark if we don't realize how directly related that is. So, there's a reason why advertisers get paid a lot, because they're helping companies sell you shit that you don't need. And so that you are disempowered, and they want to do that just by, pushing it through your feed. Because if you see it, then it's like you see it a number of times, then you start to think you need it. It's this way. It's like really transparent programming that's right there in front of our face. But I don't think that we realize how insidious it is. And so it's not to be afraid of it. It's just to be vigilant about it and be selective about what you allow yourself to be exposed to. I think we're on devices so much now that we take it for granted, and we don't realize how everything that we're exposed to is influencing us and it's programming us. And we're in deep, deep unprogramming territory right now. So we want to go deep, deep, deep in the nest, in the cave, it's like cutting out all of the external influence so that we can hear the strength of our own voice, so that we can hear the center of our own voice and our own guidance without being influenced by everything and everyone from the outside. And I think that this has been, an accidental bonus of COVID, because we've had to physically remove ourselves from people and spaces and get really small and get really quiet. And although that's been painful, the other side of the beauty of that is that we have to sit with all of the feelings that come up when we slow down. Now, there's a lot of people that didn't slow down during COVID, and they're probably the ones that are going to be having the hardest time now, because, there's no getting out of it. If there's one thing that I've learned from all of the intuitive sessions and readings that I have done, is there is no getting out of your work. Like, you can hit snooze all you want in this lifetime. If you don't deal with it now, you're going to deal with it on the other side. I've seen it over and over and over again. There is no getting out of it. So let me go back. I'm going to bring in the oil a little bit early here, because it has archetypal energy here. So the one that wanted to come forward for this month is frankincense. And there's a couple reasons for this. I have mine on, just so you know, what frankincense, all the great things about frankincense. If you put a roller lid on the top, you can do what's called Frank Your Face. And you do it every day, and it's amazing, and it smells awesome. So I'm just going to do it right now. And it's in the premium starter kit. It's one of the basic ones that you get up front. So even if you have an account, you can still order it. But I friggin' love this oil. So here's the reason for the archetypal energy that it holds, is the divine masculine. And it is kind of the container that everything gets created in and cleansed in. And this is so Virgo right now. This came up the new moon in Virgo as well. There's this cleaning, there's this definition. Virgo is so good about details and organization, and getting everything ready for birth is kind of the energy that I'm seeing. It's like we're building the nest, and we're pulling out all the pieces that don't work for us anymore, all the people, places, experiences, ideas, jobs that we're like, oh, we're going to this, we're doing this routine, it's not fulfilling us, it's not rewarding, we don't want to do it anymore. So there's this definition of clearing and purging things that are no longer for us, But frankincense holds the energy of that container, that divine masculine that holds a strong container. I'm diffusing it right now and it smells amazing. It's that strong container that allows us to see a definition between what is us and what is somebody else. And that Virgo energy is like going in there and cleaning it and readying the nest for birth, because there is kind of a birth energy to this month also, because from the top of the year, I've been feeling this breakdown energy. And I thought, wow, haven't we already been through enough of this? And now we're coming into the 9th month, the gestation period. So there's this energy of like, ooh, what is new that's going to be coming out and going to be birthed? And also, it feels like there's this way that there's this new birth that's coming out, but it needs to be safe and protected. And that is also the energy of frankincense and what frankincense offers to us. So let's see, I'll go through a couple of the other oils since I'm here as well. So because we have a lot of, we're in that like in between space right now, which is, to go back to the birth analogy, it's like just before the baby is born. Any woman who's ever been pregnant knows very well the nesting energy that comes in right before you're readying the room, you're getting everything tidied and ready to go. That's here. And then it feels like in September, we're going to tip over. And I don't know, maybe it's when we tip over into Libra, but there's this kind of tipping over energy. So we're in the in-between space. And so because we have that death rebirth cycle for the planetary blends, I'm going to suggest Pluto. I don't have it with me because I'm making all those to order now, so I don't have any extras with me. But so I'm going to suggest Pluto, and then I'm also going to suggest Mercury, because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo. We have that energy here too. But also, oh, that's interesting that I brought Venus down too. So Venus is the ruler of Libra, which we'll go into at the midpoint of September. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is Mars, because we have, so right now we are in setup phase for the Mercury retrograde, which is going to happen September 9 to October 1. So we're already in the setup phase for that. So Mercury would be a great one to work with throughout the whole Mercury retrograde, or anytime you're working with Virgo or Gemini, the ruler of both those signs. And then we also have a Mars retrograde coming up October 30th through Jan 12. So I forget when the shadow period of that starts, but it's probably at the top of October. So not quite this month yet, but I just want to prep you for it because it's going to be a big time period here. And also because Mars is the god of war. And here I'm talking about Joan of Arc and this kind of battle maiden energy. And so also I want to bring in Venus, because if you feel like you have too much Mars, you can balance it with Venus. Or if you feel like you have too much Venus, you can balance it with Mars. But Venus would also be a great one to work with this month because of Libra later in the month. We're already in Uranus retrograde. Uranus is the planet of the unexpected. So expect the unexpected. That kind of energy is here. Okay, I talked about sorting and organizing. Oh, there's this piece around listening. And it kind of has to do with rhythm, but listening so that you can hear your own wisdom, your own timing. And we want to listen long enough that we can respond to what we're hearing, but not until we have the whole message, right? So there's this deep listening that goes back to like the nest, the cave energy, the presence. Frankincense is good with that too, like kind of helping you ground and tune in and feel what you're feeling there. And then respond, because what we're learning to do is respond in and to and with co-creation. So it isn't just us by ourselves, it kind of makes me think of the energy of like corporations that are just looking at their financial spreadsheets and trying to make a profit and go. It's like this rote routine. And that whole system is breaking down right now. And the divine feminine, the wisdom of the divine feminine and the necessity of that for balance which is another great reason that I brought Mars and Venus. I didn't even think about that. But it's the balancing of those two. And remember, last month we got the alchemical wedding card, and that was all about the balancing of the masculine feminine. And the feminine has been repressed for so long that it's like a beach ball that's been pushed down underneath the water, and it can only be there for so long before it blows up and comes out. And it's like, no, I just even want to say, hello, motherfuckers. Like, you cannot deny the feminine. You cannot push it down. You cannot subjugate half of yourself and then think that you're going to, because we all have masculine and feminine in us. You can't subjugate half of your body and then expect it to run smoothly. It's not going to happen. So that energy, that destruction of the old patriarchy is starting to happen. And the feminine is rising up, and we're seeing like, hey, you can't ignore everything that's in the dark, fertile spaces. All of that has deep wisdom and deep knowledge. And it goes back to that thing I talked about with the new moon in Virgo, this piece around emotions and physicality and how those two have to sit side by side and move together. So I'm going to dive into the card right now and see what else wants to come through, because there was so much coming on my walk that I was like, wow, I don't even know how I can remember all of this and get into it. So let me get into the rest of this with the card and see what else wants to come through. Okay, interesting. This is, I'm using the Kim Kranz Wild Unknown Alchemy deck for maybe the third, fourth time now. So I have no idea, but I can imagine. Vinegar. Let's see what we got here, because it's, kind of feels like that bitter pill, to swallow, that sour thing that is necessary. Okay, it says acidity, distillation, memory. The tongue knows vinegar. Even the suggestion of receiving a few drops into the mouth reminds us of vinegar's sour and lip-puckering qualities. In alchemy, vinegar serves as an active agent of distillation, fermentation, and preservation. It is incredibly useful when applied in the right amounts and with intention. So this kind of makes me feel like that the energy of the nest being clean and purged and realizing what you need and what you don't, and then activating the power of the feminine that is intention into everything you do. This said, it can be easily overused, overwhelming the situation at hand. Okay, think about vinegar. It can easily be overused, overwhelming the situation at hand if you use too much of it. This makes me feel like the energy of war. Like if you're going to battle just to go to battle and you don't have purpose and direction that's living underneath that, if you're trying to, trim a tree or cut through weeds or whatever, if you aren't intentional about, I want to take these weeds and I want to leave these beautiful flowers, you could potentially, cut the whole thing. So to me, that feels like rogue or disempowered masculine that they're talking about. When the vinegar card is present in a reading, it indicates a sour note permeates the laboratory. It is likely something from the past is showing up in the present and demanding our attention. Can you say trauma? That's what I'm talking about. It's all of the stuff that you don't want to see. And most people lean heavily away from doing their work in this area. Most people would rather just push it down, don't talk about what's happening, don't look and see what's happening in the room, and just try to keep it light on the surface and joyful and funny and happy. Well, that doesn't get anything done. It might keep you from having to look at stuff, but it's not going to help you alchemicalize the past. It's not going to help you grab your pain and turn it into purpose. It's not going to do any of that. Let's see. It is in vinegar's nature to take over, to overwhelm. Be cautious with this material. A little goes a long way. As they say, it is productive to look at your past, but not to stare. Such is the complex energy of vinegar. Okay, so this is like doing your work in the past, doing what I'm talking about with the battle maiden, the frankincense, the Virgo, the detail-oriented thing, to clean and purge and help a thing, but not to, what's the word that I want? Not to ruminate there so long that you get stuck, or so long that you stay in your own suffering and you never can turn that pain into purpose and move past it. So it's not about rushing and getting over your healing, but it's also not about staying and hanging out in the past so much that you can never lean in and live into your present and future. Okay, it says to go deeper, view the allegorical Chinese painting, The Vinegar Tasters, to ponder the wisdom of the tongue. Okay, something else wants to come through here about the tongue and words. The importance of words. Makes me think of the Four Agreements. Don Miguel Ruiz, if you have not read that book, make it a priority. It's so important. I can't remember exactly what they all are right now. Be impeccable with your word, I know, is one of them. Don't take anything personally. I don't remember all four of them right off the top of my head. But the wisdom of the tongue. This is what is so important right now, is precision and timing and being clear and clean about what you say and do, what you include in your work, in your friendships, in your day-to-day life. It's like what stays and what goes. And being really clear about that. A lot of times we talk without really saying anything. But we could say a lot with few words, and you can see that really evidenced in poetry, or painting, any kind of art form. All right, let me get back to the card. With such distinct qualities, vinegar can act as a surprising trump card. That makes me feel like the Mercury retrograde and the Uranus retrograde and the Mars too. It sets the tone for all others that are present. Its sour note cannot be ignored. So there's this energy. I want to talk about the Mercury retrograde really quick, because as Virgo is ruled by Mercury, anytime, you have a Mercury retrograde, it's a disintegration to reintegration period. So as I talked about in the new moon in Virgo, there's this energy of sorting and organizing, and it's like, okay, we're at that tipping point. We're ready to go forward. And also with these retrogrades right here, it's like, well, just kidding, not so fast. We're going to dissolve anything else that remains, that is, part of lack, that is part of you feeling unworthy, the places where you prostitute yourself for worthiness. Pulling way back from that, and again, listening to the sound of your own wisdom and saying, okay, do I authentically want to do that? Do I authentically want to offer that? Or is that something that I think I need to do in order to be valued, in order to be important, in order to be part of this like social media or, social commentary? And a lot doesn't need to be engaged with. In fact, sometimes it's just like stirring a pot and making a mess. The vinegar card may be used as a helpful ally in the laboratory to identify a memory that is causing trouble or grief. It is a wonderful means of distillation to identify a memory that is causing trouble or grief. That is 100% the backdrop of all of my work. Everything about intuitive healing sessions is about identifying what is in your way and clearing it. And, you can spend years in talk therapy, and I've done it. I have no shame to talk therapy. Like, I love it. It's super, super helped me. But also, when the kind of work that I do is going in and identifying what is the thing that is in the way and clearing it. And a lot of times that can clear the outer layers. of all the ways that that pattern ends up showing up in your life in a really destructive, painful way. And so that's the level of work that we're doing right now. And one other thing that came through when I was walking is I'm now understanding why Spirit had me go back to doing moon ceremony, and why they wanted me to do it in the first place is because we have gotten wildly out of sync with nature. We have gotten wildly out of rhythm and pattern and timing and being in right relationship with nature. And so the reason for doing the moon ceremonies is to bring us back into rhythm with that, bring us back into timing and cadence, and recognizing that our body is operating on that same rhythm that nature is part of. And so to do the moon ceremonies every 2 weeks is bringing us back in. And this is why I was shown that when I work with people in packages over 3 months, we work every 2 weeks, because there's a cadence. You need that 2-week time period to integrate what has happened, but then you don't want to take it so long into 3 or 4 weeks, because what ends up happening is it's like you have to start over again. It's kind of like the metaphor that I was seeing was taking wallpaper off of a wall. If you have ever done a project like that, you know that you have to stay at it, because if you take too much time away, it'll be like you're starting over. You're starting all over again. If you're, when you're going to take away wallpaper, you have to wet it, you have to score it, and then you have to wait until, the water's soaked in, just like that integration period, and then you come back and you start chipping away. And you might be part way into it and then realize like, oh, there's 2 or 3 layers of wallpaper. There's 4 layers of wallpaper. Then you get underneath that. Oh, there's 4 or 5 layers of paint. And that's exactly how my work is as well. It's like, and that's why with the moon ceremonies, like we have to do it every 2 weeks. We don't take time away from it. We take, the 2-week period so that you can integrate and move and shift. But we actually have the power to move and shift and adjust and change a lot faster than we realize it. But again, I'm hearing that's why the strength training, that's why that word, it's like, you can't exercise once a month and think that it's going to be strong and fit and healthy. Like you have to do it every day, and maybe you take like 1 or 2 days off in between, but you have to stay at it, or it's like starting at ground zero again. So that's that last piece I wanted to bring in is the strength training piece and staying the course, like staying at the task. And there's so much, I can't even tell you how, especially this year, how bad it's been with, feeling the change and going, okay, and feeling the change in my work, like as an entrepreneur, feeling everything crumble and fall apart, and then going, okay, wait a minute, I thought I was doing this. I had this beautiful cadence last year, thinking that I was going to do, my mentorship and all of these things again. And then everything started to break down and fall apart. And I now realize, I always say this to other people, everything's happening for you, not to you. But then sometimes I forget my own guidance. And it's like, oh yeah, all of this chaos, all of this breakdown, all of this like out of, feeling or seemingly out of rhythm, out of time is all happening for us. Because we have to break down everything that wasn't working and everything that is like, the prostitute archetype, the way that we pimp ourselves out for free, whether it be with our family or friends or in our work, all these ways that we overgive and then we're completely depleted. And I feel like women do this even more because they are, born birthers, givers, life generators, and the outside world has said, hey, that's your purpose, that's your value, and it kind of ends there. Which is why, women who don't have children oftentimes, or have a struggle with that feeling of like, okay, did I not do my quote unquote duty? And a lot of women don't want to have children, and that's fine, and that's okay. That's not part of, it doesn't have to be part of your worth, but society often places that on us. And then, my God, how many people have had children that didn't want to? And so there's this way that we have to get out of that sticky, ugly, oh God, it's like catty. It's like the way women are kind of catty with each other, and we want to shame and blame. This other piece wants to come that I've been noticing more and more. I have a Peloton, and there is this hashtag, Peloton moms, and then there's Peloton working moms, or working moms of Peloton, or whatever. And I'm like, folks, can we just all get on the same page? All moms are working moms. That's just bullshit, okay? And in fact, women who work outside of the home that are moms often have it easier. I've done both, and I can tell you that working outside of the home with a kid that's at home is easier. Now, you might miss them. It might be hard on you as a heartbreak, but you get time and space away from that overgiving, overdoing thing. And stay-at-home moms, it's fucking hard, man. It's like you don't get any break, you don't get any breath. Oftentimes what you're giving and what you're doing all day long is not valued because it's not generating money. That's like our whole system has been based on that money thing, and this feeling of like, if you aren't producing money, then your worthiness and value doesn't exist. And we have to get out of that and realize that our worthiness and value is at the root of who we are and what we give just by being who we are. So anyways, and this goes back to something I've said over and over and over again, but I'll repeat it again just for anyone who's new or needs the reminder. What you are here to do is the thing that comes most easy and most natural to you. And we dismiss it, we discard it, we walk over it because we don't realize it, because we think it has to be hard. This is the Mars energy. We think it has to be hard. And so we tell ourselves, well, if it wasn't really hard for us to learn those skills and do this thing, then it isn't of value. But the things that come easy are the thing that you're here to teach and give because it comes so easy to you. And it isn't easy to other people. And that's why that's what you need to teach. I'm getting fired because it's that battle maiden energy. It's the Mars, it's the fire, it's the cutting through things, It's like we have to get that. And I want to end with this last piece because an intuitive friend of mine was telling me, and this wasn't just for me, this was for everybody. And then I realized later, oh my God, it's exactly in sync with the Mars retrograde. She was saying that October to January is going to be the hardest time for us in transitioning to this new energy. And I don't know what that means. And I typically don't like to predict things like that. I don't think it's really valuable or useful or even in integrity to use intuitive gifts for future casting or forecasting or predicting the future, because energy is always changing in the now moment. So even if you went to a tarot reader and they said, yes, you're going to get married in 3 weeks or 3 months or what, and they give you this timeline, it's like, it's always changing because you are always changing. And I don't personally think that there's a lot of value in using intuitive gifts that way. And sometimes they can get hijacked for bad when people try to then say, I have your answer for you and let me give it to you, which is utter bullshit because no one has your answer but you. So anyways, let's see. Is there anything else that wants to come through before we go? I guess I'll just show you this vinegar card again because it's interesting. Oh, actually, this is something I wanted to bring up. So we've got the cross, right? We've got the 4 directions. And this is something else I thought was really interesting that came through on my walk. I've noticed this before, but it never came through in the exact way of this. So I was talking about the feed, right? It's not even transparent, but it's called a feed. This is what we're feeding ourselves. News, the word news, N-E-W-S, are directional signs. North, east, west, south. And when you think about that, it's like, okay, that's the direction that they want us to go in. North, east, west, south. It's counterclockwise. It makes a counterclockwise circle. Okay, in energy healing, in energy work, when you work with the chakras, when you work with energy centers, you go clockwise to close the energy, you go counterclockwise to open it up. And I just thought, isn't that interesting that the news is so divisive and so it's activating on purpose. It wants us to go to 11. It wants us to go like this and wild and, be swung around and drug around by the nose. And that's this level of strength training that we are working towards. And it's internal strength training. It's saying, I'm not going to be led around by the nose, and I'm going to use critical thinking. And I might hear a story, but then I'm going to lean into it and ask myself, does that actually resonate with me? Does that actually feel true? Does the whole thing feel true, or do only bits and pieces feel true? And only pull out those bits and pieces that feel true and take those with you and dump and leave the rest. I just thought that was really interesting this morning when I realized, wow, it's north, east, west, south. Oh, hang on a second. North. No, maybe it's not. North. No, it's a jagged. North, east, west, south. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I still think it applies. And if you think about it, so if it goes north, east, west, south, that's one swing of the swastika and not the other side. And I forget which direction is which, but you know, the Nazis took that symbol from India. I think, I can't remember where that symbol originates, but they put it in the opposite direction. So anyways, regardless of any of that, what's important to note here is that we are being programmed all the time with symbols, with colors, with song. Like, look at people's logos, look at all the different stuff. Like, we have to start noticing that all of that is intended to program us, and it's happening all the time, and we disregard it and think, oh, you know, that's silly. But that is, you know, people talk about like the witch energy was really up in the new moon in Virgo, and this kind of witch hunt and taking the witches down. But that kind of magic is being used all the time in marketing, in, you know, the public stage, like all the symbols, all the things. Like, start paying attention to that. How many symbols do you see in a day? What do they look like? What are their colors? Associate those with the chakra colors. There's a lot of stuff here. Like I said, this was a whole bunch of stuff I didn't even know I was going to say. I was just like barely cusping on it when I sat down, and more wants to come through here. So this is deep Virgo territory where it's cleaning, right? And then I didn't even say much about Libra, but Libra is the scales. So it's like cleaning and purging and getting the space clean, and then it's balancing the energy, right? Which is going to start, like the Libra season is going to come in right when we start going into that Mars retrograde. So it's going to be balancing the scales, balancing that masculine, feminine energy. And where are we going? And where does that imbalance live inside of us? That's what we're really investigating. Because it's like, you know, we can't stop the war in Ukraine until we stop the war within ourselves. Like, it's just utter bullshit to think we can do anything about it outside. Like, yes, you can work towards peace outside. I'm not saying that. But the real work is about the balance in here. You know, what are you fighting against? What are you waging war against? Where, like, do you love yourself? Do you pause and honor and give yourself space to witness yourself, to honor yourself? So, my God, I feel like I could go on all day with this, so I'm going to shut it down. I love you. Did I say anything about the root chakra for chakra oils? Root, super, super Virgo. Down in the depths, it's kind of connected to that frankincense energy. It's the container that holds all things. The root is about safety, security, finances, stability, all of those things. And it feels like we're all being kind of uprooted and planted in new soil, you know, new remineralized soil, you know, cleaning and giving ourselves new soil, watering our plants with vitamin water, you know, with the minerals, plant food. So anyways, pay attention to what you're feeding yourself this month. Pay attention to what you're feeding yourself and what society wants to feed you, and decide what's healthy for you and what's not healthy for you, and be the one, be the decider, be the container of frankincense, be discerning about that and say, no, I'm not going to take that, but I will take that. I'll add this. You know, it's like we're cooking, it's like the cauldron of self that we are cooking up here. So anyways, I love you. Namaste. If you have not been joining, let me just add this last piece. If you have not been joining the moon ceremony, know that they're all pre-recorded now. You can grab them. I usually drop them a couple days before the full moon or the new moon. You can buy them individually. You can buy them in subscription for a little bit cheaper, and then you'll automatically get them every 2 weeks. And I feel like the bulk of my work, like I'm going to start creating some kind of community here around these ceremonies so that people that are taking them and doing them can get to know each other. There's something here that's brewing, so stay tuned for that. And then I think I'm going to continue leaving up for brand new people. Use the code NEWBIE, NEWBIE, for the moon ceremony if it's your very first time and you want to try, because I feel like, my experience is that direct experience is your best teacher. So if you can come and experience it and know what it is, it'll help you understand it, and then you'll know why to come back and why we do what we do, and how to move through it. So anyways, all right, love you. Namaste. Have a wonderful September. It feels really rich and vital with nutrients and purging and clearing and reshaping and redefining who we are and where we're going. And it's going to be magic, but not without some really hard work. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's going to take a bit to get through this. So be patient with yourself, love on yourself. And if you get in a challenging spot, sit, breathe, slow down, meditate, go in and ask yourself what's happening, what wants to move, what pain is sitting here that I might be avoiding or ignoring, and look at that and address that. And I'm here for sessions if you need help moving through it. All right. Love you so much. Namaste.